Ghana's poverty rate pegged at 23.4%, representing 6.8 million of the population in 2017.
Twelve labor unions cautioned government against businessman Dr. Pakwesi Indio's proposal to use pension funds to shore banks' minimum capital requirements.
Also ahead this evening, AntiCorruption Crusader says parliamentary investigation of 7 collapsed banks is duplication of efforts and a waste of resources.
And Kotoka International Airport Terminal 3 successfully undertake test flights ready for full operations.
On the international front this evening, Brazil's presidential frontrunner lost 40% of blood after he was stabbed.
Now let's begin the news tonight with a story that has dominated news headlines in Ghana today. Family members of 6 people who perished through floodwaters at Adija in the Osuntwe district are yet to come to terms with the loss. But some residents have blamed the incident on a weak bridge which is yet to be fixed by city authorities despite several complaints. Here's a report by Beatrice Piogabra.
The Jehovah's Witness family of 6 drowned in flood waters when their private saloon car was swept away into a river at Adija. The deceased include 52-year-old father Kofi Reakun, his wife Mercy Reakun, a son who has just gained admission to Prempeh College, and 3 other family members yet to be identified. They were returning home after taking part in the construction of a Kingdom Hall at Adija on Thursday. Following a downpour, the river Ankunim overflowed its banks, submerging a bridge on the road. The swift-flowing flood waters swept the vehicle off the bridge. All 6 were trapped in the submerged vehicle. Some volunteers managed to retrieve the bodies after rituals were performed early Friday. Sorrow engulfed a family house at Adija, where Mercy Reakun joined in cooking for workers constructing the Kingdom Hall. A surviving daughter was inconsolable. A family member who spoke to TV3 narrated how the news was received.
Mercy Reakun is my daughter. She was here with us cooking for the construction workers, but left in the evening when it was raining to join her husband.
A volunteer rescuer, Kwabinedu, told TV3 News he and other volunteers were able to retrieve 4 bodies after performing customary rites by pouring libation.
The linguists and elders of Adija poured libation before we retrieved the bodies. We then carried them from the flood waters.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Adija Drivers Association, Samuel Broni Dakun, has reiterated calls for urgent steps to repair bad roads and the bridge at Adija. He disclosed that some persons have lost their lives over the years while trying to cross the bridge after having downpour.
Meanwhile, 2 persons are reported dead after they drowned in a river, Jansa, at Sinisi, a farming community in the Boza North District. The Jansa River takes its source from the Black Volta. Now, these deaths are as a result of the Bagri Dam spillage, which runs directly into the Black Volta. The sad incident occurred yesterday at about 2 p.m. Search and rescue is underway. So far, 1 body has been retrieved. Victims' identity, however, is yet to be known. This incident brings the total number of deaths in the region to 3. It will be recalled that 1 death was reported in the Wale district of the northern region. A total of 1,000 people have been displaced. Their houses have been either inundated or collapsed by flood. Currently, most victims are staying in nearby schools.
Now let's move away from the farce. And 2 months after the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Scheme, Henry Nanabuachi, was elected as the National Youth Organizer of the New Patriotic Party in a landslide victory. In spite of others resigning their official positions to contest the national office, the Deputy NSS boss is yet to do so.
No, I'll resign. But I will.
This was an interview he granted Accra-based OKFM on the president's directive that all appointees standing for party positions should resign. In an interview, he gave examples of other appointees who, per the directive by the president, resigned to contest the national office.
Papa, Peter Honorable, voter regional chairman, Jackson, from Paul. No, Central Regional Youth Organizer, CEO or Youth Employment Agency. And also no AC form.
Henry Nanabuachi is declared the winner for the National Youth Organizer.
With a huge margin, the Deputy NSS boss received huge endorsement from the NPP delegate to become their National Youth Organizer. He admits the position of the National Youth Organizer is Herculean.
A party for the Assembly, National Youth Organizer. It is huge, it is broad.
There are calls for his resignation as the Deputy NSS boss in the wake of him not resigning from the National Service Scheme. Sources within the National Service say he made his intention known to resign at the last regional directors meeting, but has since failed to act accordingly. Political scientist with the University of Cape Coast, Cor Emisa, says the lack of a proper enforcement of directives is to blame.
I think that it is terribly a huge task for him to hold the two positions. They were emphatic on the fact that you should resign the party position, which makes me think that it is more about making the party efficient. I am expecting that the National Youth Organizer will resign from government and then choose the party position, since he was recently elected. And whilst he was going to the polls, he was still the deputy boss of NSS. So I expect that he resigns the government position.
Attempt to reach Henry Nanabuachi on calls for his resignation has proved futile.
Now, the leadership of 12 labor unions has cautioned government not to allow businessman Dr. Pakwesi Ndum to secure their pension funds in order to pay 400 million cedis minimum capital requirement of the Bank of Ghana. The leadership explained that such a request by Dr. Pakwesi Ndum could mar the labor front and affect benefits of pensioners after they retire. Here's its chairman, Isaac Bampo, who spoke with our labor correspondent, Daniel Opoku.
The leadership of 12 unions, the forum, was reacting to a plea by businessman Dr. Pakwesi Ndum for government to allow local banks to use pension funds to recapitalize. He alluded that currently there is an excess of 10 billion cedis of pension funds lodged at the Bank of Ghana and yet to be invested. He expressed concern that any further delay to use the amount could further collapse the remaining local banks.
Local banks are looking for money to recapitalize 400 million. So if I had 120 million in capital, I need 280. Just imagine if the pension funds in Ghana, if they were asked, find which of the local banks have good governance practices and let's help them. It would be very easy. They can get to the 400 and the banks will remain Ghanaian.
However, the leadership of the 12 labor unions, the forum, has warned government not to allow local banks use the pension funds or risk industrial unrest. The chairman of the forum, Isaac Bampuado, recalled agitation by civil servants and teachers in 2004, which spearheaded the promulgation of the new Pensions Act 766.
For Pakwesi Indun to tell us that the original intent was to capitalize private sector, it's totally wrong. The intent was to enhance pension income of workers. After agitations by workers, that civil servants and teachers, that SNIT pensions we were getting was woefully inadequate.
He implored government not to grant the request of Dr. Pakwesi Indum.
The second tier is a defined contribution. And whatever contribution you make is supposed to be invested. Proper investment. And based on your contribution plus your investment income, that's what you take as lump sum. And the money is not government money. The money is for the contributors. You must get it clear. So nobody can sit down there and say somebody should be forced to invest money to the private sector. So that when you are going to pension, you take Kofi lump sum. It's never going to happen. He must revise his notes.
He again rejected the idea that pension funds be used to recapitalize other businesses in the private sector.
If the securities that they are coming up with are attractive, the schemes will go in. If they are not attractive, I beg to differ. Nobody can force us to go into them. Nobody.
The leadership of the union says it is monitoring discussions on whether government will allow the local banks to leverage on pension funds for liquidity support.
Let's turn to some other stories this evening, as Ghana's poverty rate is 23.4%, which represents 6.8 million of the country's population in 2017. These people are not able to spend 4 cedis 82 pesos per day on food.
From the Poverty Profile in Ghana report, 8.2% of Ghanaians are living in extreme poverty, which translates to 2.4 million people. The 8.2% Ghanaians living in extreme poverty are not able to spend 2 Ghana cedis 69 pesos per day on food. Ghana's overall poverty has reduced marginally by 0.8% from 24.2% in 2012-2013 to 23.4% in 2016-2017. At the launch of the Poverty Profile in Ghana in Accra, the head of Industrial Statistics and IBES at Ghana Statistical Service, Anthony Krakah, noted some factors which led to the reduction.
The way welfare is distributed, as measured in inequality, has gone up. In other words, welfare is more in the hands of a few.
He noted the significance of the Poverty Profile report for policymakers. The Poverty Profile report shows economic growth has become less proper over the years. Poverty in rural Ghana is higher than in urban Ghana. The poverty rate in Greater Accra region is 2%, while that of Upper West is the highest with 71%. Country Director of Department of International Development, Philip Smith, observed that with over £2 billion invested in development aid in Ghana, there is still high poverty rate in the north.
The rising inequality is a big issue for Ghana. We need to look at it in terms of how Ghana delivers the Sustainable Development Goals, and we need to look at it in terms of how we ensure that as Ghana moves beyond aid, that inequality and support to the poorest and the most marginalised Ghanaians is part of that ambitious agenda.
Director of the National Population Council, Dr. Letitia Adelaide Appiah, suggested poverty reduction interventions should be model with both economic and population in mind.
Countries that have developed have very high contraceptive prevalence rates. Then it is easy to help the women and the families out of poverty. Assuming that I had 3 children, you gave me LIP this year, next year I have 4 children. How am I going to get out of poverty? There's a close correlation between population end economic development, and the fertility differential will sustain the economic inequality if we do not focus on fertility differential, if we do not focus on population.
The Poverty Profile Report throws light on the impact of government policies on poverty over the years.
Let's stay on this issue a bit further as I'm joined in studio by Anthony Cracker. He's the head of Industrial Statistics and IBES coordinator at the Ghana Statistical Service. Anthony, good evening and thanks for joining us. Good evening. So these figures show some form of a reduction from the previous years. Can you explain that a bit further and what exactly the report seeks to achieve?
Right. Over the years, Ghana has recorded reduction in poverty. The Ghana Statistical Service have been conducting this survey in the past 3 decades, and we have seen a reduction in poverty over the period. The report seeks to advise policymakers on how to, and provide them information on how to implement policies that would be able to mitigate our poverty rates so that we can have lower poverty rates in the future.
You say it seeks to inform policymakers, and the report indicates the fact that the 3 northern regions have the highest poverty rate in the country. What reasons would you attribute that to exactly?
Well, what we can say from the report is that we realize that inequality, that the level at which welfare is distributed across the population, is worse off in the 3 northern regions. You realize that welfare is in the hands of a few, and so there's disparity between the rich and the poor, and so that has accounted for largely the increase in poverty in the 3 northern regions. So you realize that the poorer regions, the regions that have high poverty rates, have high inequality compared to the regions that have low poverty rates, and so we think that the level of inequality is what is accounting for the high poverty rates in the north.
And how do policymakers take this information and act on it to see that things change?
Well, I think we think that for policymakers, they have to look at the data, because it's a very rich data. Look at the data and see where to target. And normally, when you say inequality, we are talking about welfare distribution, and so they must implement policies that would be able to bridge the gap. In other words, enhance policymakers that will make sure that the poor are well taken care of. The poor can undertake business activities, economic activities, so that well-being can come up a little, so that we can bridge that gap. And then if you're able to solve the problem of inequality, especially in the north, it's likely that poverty rates will come down.
Will drop. And the report indicates some form of growth, and it specifies and said it's been pro-poor, less pro-poor.
Right.
Can you explain this further?
Right. We wanted to find out to what extent does growth impacts poverty reduction. Generally, it's expected that all things being equal, economic growth should impact poverty reduction. And so we did the estimates and realized that over the periods between 2005 and 12, and between 2012 and then 2017, over the period, the rate at which GDP growth or economic growth has impacted on poverty reduction has declined. For instance, we realized that between the 2 periods, we did what we call the growth elasticity of poverty, which measures the extent to which 1% change in economic growth can result in a reduction in poverty. And realized that between 2005 and 2013, whilst 1% change in GDP will result in a 0.17% change in poverty rate. Now, between 2013 and 2017, realized that that has reduced to 0.07%.
The link between GDP and
poverty reduction. And so, over time, we can say that GDP or economic growth has become less pro-poor. Yes, it is pro-poor, but the margin at which, the rate at which it impacts on poverty reduction has reduced.
Thanks so much for your time this evening. Anthony Cracker, head of Industrial Statistics and IBES, that's Integrated Business Establishment Survey Coordinator at the Ghana Statistical Service. Let's now turn to our MTN Visual Reports this evening as our citizen journalist, Anyas, reports on an uncompleted school project at Namangu in the northern region.
The The construction of this building started 11 years ago, since the constructor left this place. And since then, nobody has attended to this building again. This is a primary school that is supposed to serve 2 communities here. That is Namangu and then Bumbriga. That is a nearby community. There's no furniture in this school, and during school days, the children are forced to sit on the sand like that for studies. We appeal to the appropriate authority to come to our aid to help us finish this building. Anyas, a citizen journalist reporting for TV3, Namangu, East Amprose District.
Now we encourage you to also send your video report via our WhatsApp number. It's 05514330044. That's 05514330044.
It's time for business. Good evening and thanks for staying with us on NEWS360. My name is Knicker. We begin from the airports. The Kotoka International Airport Terminal 3 is to begin full operation on September 15 after successfully hosting its first arrival Friday, September 7. Director General of Ghana Airports Company, John Atefua, who disclosed this during a familiarization tour of the facility owned by the new Aviation Minister, Joseph Kofi Adda, said every aspect of the terminal is ready for the takeoff. The $250 million 6-passenger boarding bridge Kotoka International Airport Terminal 3 project commenced on October 3, 2015 by the Ghana Airports Company with support from central government. The 6 boarding bridges terminal has all security monitoring systems, including sophisticated scanners capable of detecting all manner of contrabands to meet international standards. The terminal also has a fully automated baggage handling system expected to handle and screen up to 3,000 bags per hour. It has 56 check-in desks, 30 passport control centers, 22 airline ticketing offices, 4 e-gates, 6 boarding gates and 2 boarding lounges. The terminal can process 1,250 passengers per hour and up to 5 million passengers a year, with an expansion potential of up to 6.5 million passengers. The project was expected to be handed over to the Ghana Airports Company before the end of April for at least a 2-month testing before official commissioning. But that has delayed due to unforeseen challenges which have now been completely eliminated.
We had 4 flights on Monday, and today we've had our first arrivals into this terminal. And so far, all our systems have worked as we had expected, and we are very confident that come the 15th of this month, when we go live from here, we should not have any problems and challenges.
Aviation Minister Joseph Kofi Adda expressed satisfaction with work done.
Professionally done, neat, things well organized. The markings are there in terms of where to go to get whatever service, whether it's customs, immigration, or even the restrooms. I think it's up to us as Ghanaians, especially when we come here, to also maintain that decorum and make sure everything we're doing is top class.
So when will the facility be fully commissioned?
On the 2nd of October, when the President comes, it's ready to commission. We'll be fully operational from that point onwards. We're doing some tests now. Some flights have come in today and gone through this just to see how the operation looks like or how it's performing.
The minister again assured Ghanaians the project, a major facelift at the Kotoka International Airport, would be handed over together with auxiliary works including link roads, construction of pavement and other fittings. The test flight at the Terminal 3 ended Friday, September 7. Right, from the airports, let's talk banking and fixed deposits. Customers with now defunct Speech Bank are still unable to access their funds 15 clear days after the Consolidated Bank promised to unblock their accounts. A depositor, Nana Kofi Amwakohene, who spoke to TV2 Business, wants the bank to expedite action in releasing their funds.
On August 12, the Consolidated Bank Ghana, CBG, sent notices to customers of Beige Access Management that their accounts had been blocked. Daniel Ado, CEO of the Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited, noted in a statement that certain accounting anomalies in the fixed deposit accounts between Beige Bank and Beige Capital Asset Management had to be resolved, even though the statement requested that customers should give the bank 10 working days to resolve the matter. That is yet to be done.
Investment rate, which was pegged as 23.5, was slashed to 13%. All these were done without stakeholder consultations, which to me is very wrong, is unethical, very unprofessional.
Nana Kofi Amoako-Hene also expressed worry over lack of communication on the part of the Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited to customers.
Effective communication, in as much as we want to work with them to find a long-lasting solution to this whole problem, effective communication is very important. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because people are at sea. People don't really know what's happening, and we need our monies. For me, I'd like to speak for myself. My investment matured on the 15th of August. It's almost a month now.
He is therefore appealing to the bank to expedite action so customers can access their funds.
I have 3 other friends. One lost their mom 2 days ago, and I can state that on record, because she needed money to go pay for hospital bills and to buy some drugs or medicine for the sick mom. She couldn't afford it because she wasn't having enough. All that she had was what she deposited with the bank, and she lost the mom. Another friend also brought in some cars from the States to sell. Those cars are still at the port, paying high cost on the mortgage. So I think it's about high time they expedite actions on it, because in as much as they are looking at how many workers are going home, how many branches are being closed, I think they should also give preference to us. Our concerns should also be on their priority.
And the Ghana Revenue Authority says the enforcement task force teams will soon conduct unannounced inspection visits to enforce compliance. Products without tax stamps would be detained or seized and applicable sanctions imposed. Commissioner General of the authority is drawing the attention of importers, manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, and the general public. And you would remember the Ghana Revenue Authority started the implementation of the Excise Tax Stamp Act 2013 Act 873 in January 2018, and the act requires that excise tax stamp shall be affixed on specified excisable goods. Again, savings and loans company Alpha Capital Savings and Loans has been implicated by the Bank of Ghana in over 20 financial irregularities, while its customers continue to plead for assistance to retrieve their deposits and investments. For 6 months, the company's offices and banking halls have been closed, with management nowhere to be found.
Alpha Capital Savings and Loans Company has closed its doors without notice to the public, and its management has absconded with people's investments and deposits. Day in and day out, customers come to their offices to see if their banking halls will be open to receive their investments. On the walls of the company is a court writ served by a customer attaching the building to meet his investments. The managing director of Alpha Capital Savings and Loans is David Yeboah, and its board chair is Samuel Etru, who is also the owner of the company. A confidential report from the Banking Supervision Department of the Bank of Ghana, seen by TV3 Business, indicates the BOG was aware of the financial situation of the company before it stopped operations. The company, among other things, misreported their financials, engaged in unlawful outsourcing and inaccurate submission of financials, as well as connected lending, and established subsidiaries without following due process. In all the 22 cited cases of irregularities, the BOG prescribed solutions and instructed the company to immediately correct the anomalies, but as it stands, the offices of the company remain locked.
Okay, so that's it for the business segment tonight. There's more on 3news.com. My name is Knicker. Mensa Brampanisa is standing by with more.
And let's do some more stories. Thank you, Nanekia Mensa Brampa. AntiCorruption Crusader Vitus Azim has chided Parliament for opening an investigation into the collapse of the 7 indigenous banks. Vitus Azim is of the view the investigation should have been left to the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. He insisted it is the duplication of efforts and waste of resources. Here's a report by Selom Amenya.
The Finance Committee of Parliament has defended its decision to conduct a probe into the crisis that has seen the collapse of 7 indigenous banks in the space of 12 months and left hundreds jobless. Anti-Corruption Crusader Vitus Azim has questioned the decision, especially when EOCO was already investigating the matter.
If you have EOCO investigating the matter, then Parliament steps in to investigate. What is the essence of the duplication of efforts and waste of resources? EOCO is established by the government, so they are a government institution. They are paid by the government to do this work. Why don't we leave it to one of the institutions to do?
He argued previous parliamentary investigations have come out with nothing concrete.
Even from they themselves, some of them have, why has somebody walked out? Another person said they were refusing to answer the questions. So they are even reducing the confidence the public has in them by taking up some of these investigations. They need to do better.
UT and Capital banks were absolved by the state-owned GCB Bank in August 2017 owing to liquidity challenges. A year later, the Bank of Ghana revoked the licenses of 5 more banks, creating the Consolidated Bank Ghana to take over their assets and liabilities.
President Akufo-Addo has been honored by the African Leadership University for his extraordinary commitment to education and exemplary leadership. Now, the founder of the university, Frank Swanica, speaking prior to presenting the award, said President Akufo-Addo's persistence and perseverance to the service of his nation has been emulated by African youth.
Swanica explained that President Akufo-Addo embodies the meaning of the quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world." According to him, Ghana, Africa, and indeed the world is already witnessing the impact of free senior high school education on the lives of hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians.
His belief in African self-reliance. I remember watching very proudly this video that was going around. It went viral. Many of you may have seen this video. If you haven't, you should watch it. Where the president of Ghana, of France, Emmanuel Macron, visited, and he stood there as our president told him about Ghana without aid, and described his vision for African self-reliance and for Ghanaian self-reliance, where we would no longer need to depend on colonial powers like France.
He added, President Akufo-Addo's persistence and perseverance in not giving up on his vision of serving Ghana is one which has to be emulated by this generation of African youth.
The situation whereby we live on the richest continent in the world and yet our people are the poorest, that dichotomy, that contradiction is not one that can continue to live. And it is no credit to us that we live on the continent with the greatest resources of the 6 continents of the world, and yet our people are the poorest people on the globe. It doesn't make sense. And it is because the mentality that we need to have, that we can do it, and that we have to be up and do it, that mentality still has not seeped through to enough of us.
And also in the news tonight, a former Supreme Court judge, Justice V.C.R.A.C. Crabb, has died at the age of 95. He died Friday morning after a short illness.
Vincent Cyril Richard Arthur Charles Crabb was born on October 29, 1923. He is a former professor of law at the University of West Indies. V.C.R.A.C. Crabb was Special Commissioner to the 1968 Constitutional Commission, Legislative Draftman to the 1969 Constituent Assembly, which drafted the 1969 Constitution of Ghana. He was also the chairman of the 1979 Constituent Assembly and drafted the 1979 Constitution of Ghana. On the international front, he worked with the Constitutional Review Commission of Kenya and was leader of the group of draft persons who drafted the Kenyan Constitution. He served on Zambian Constitutional Commission for the drafting of the Zambian Constitution, as well as the Fiajo Review Commission for the review of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. He again served with Justice P.N. Bwagati, former Chief Justice of India, and Justice Eso of Supreme Court of Nigeria to advise on the setting up of the Constitutional Court in South Africa. V.C. R.A.C. Crab, until his demise, served as a professor of law at Mount Quest University College of Accra.
May his soul rest in perfect peace. You're watching News 360. We've got some sports news coming up for you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back to News 360. Time now for some news on the international front. Brazil's presidential frontrunner, Jair Bolsonaro, lost 40% of his blood after he was stabbed on Thursday. Hospital sources say the far-right politician was attacked at a campaign rally in Minas Gerais. Doctors say he suffered a deep and life-threatening stab wound in his intestines, but is now recovering well.
Hospital officials said Mr. Bolsonaro had surgery for injuries to his intestines and is expected to recover. The controversial politician, who has outraged many in Brazil with racist and homophobic comments, has performed strongly in recent opinion polls. The polls suggest he will get the most votes in the first round of the October presidential elections if former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva remains blocked from standing, but he is unlikely to win a runoff. Left-wing Lula had been the long-standing favorite, but is currently in prison appealing against a ban on his candidacy that was imposed after his conviction for corruption. This is another twist in what has already been a turbulent campaign for one of Brazil's most uncertain elections in decades.
Well, you can get some more international news on our website. It's 3news.com. Coming up next on News 360 is entertainment with Miriam.
Hello there, my name is Miriam Osei Ajman. Let's do some entertainment news. Now, all is set for the 2018 Ghana's Most Beautiful Pageant Toro. The 10 regional representatives are set for yet another thrilling, informative and engaging season.
As part of preparations for the grand opening of this year's Ghana's Most Beautiful, the 10 adorable ladies who sailed through the audition are being prepared by the chiefs, queen mothers and elders of their respective regions. The prospective queens have already been introduced to their regions in a special durbar. The ceremony was marked with a display of rich Guinean culture unique to each region. Contestants were adorned in beautiful Guinean outfits, symbolizing their rich cultural heritage. This year's contest is under the theme, "This is the Life," and it promises to entertain and educate viewers by dishing out what is anticipated to be top-notch weekly performances. The ladies will be outdoored at the official launch of GMB on September 16 in Takoradi. Who succeeds reigning queen Zainab? Well, the search is on.
GMB 2018!
That's right, this is the life. That's GMB 2018. Of course, the launch is on the 16th of this month. Away from pageantry, now for 10 years, playwright Uncle White has given stage actors and other budding talents the opportunity to shine. The dramatist is, however, expected to take over the stage in his much anticipated one-man show, A Crazy Ride. So what is Uncle White up to this time around? He's been speaking to Uzuwarai.
Jeremiah 33,000.
Amen.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
How has it been for you, looking back from where you started and where you are now?
It's been challenging, but it has also been very interesting. It's been a growing process for us, a learning process. We learn a new thing every day. We get better every day. We reach higher every day. There are patrons, for instance, who would come to the theater and don't need to know the title of the play. All they need to know is that Uncle White has another play, and that is enough for them. That is very encouraging.
You have been casting people, being behind the scenes, putting people on stage, giving them the opportunity and all that, and why the decision to be on stage now?
We've been doing this for 10 years as Roverman with our quarterly platform. And I decided that for the 10th anniversary, let me do something very, very different to reward our patrons, because I wanted them to have a feel of something they've never had for all the 10 years. So this is me on stage. I haven't been on stage since 1992, so that is quite a big one.
And that's about it for Entertainment News tonight. My name is Miriam Osei Ajman. There's more news on 3news.com. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Miriam.
Right. And GMB is back, and we'll see more wonderful talents on stage. Watch TV3 and you'll find out more. My name is Issa Moni. Thanks for watching News 360.
I'm Natalie Fort. You can get some more news on our website. It's 3news.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely evening.